Hello and welcome to Take 6. I am streaming executive producer Thomas Mates, filling in for Julie Broughton. She's away on vacation this week, enjoying her spring break, so you'll be with me all week long, but we will keep things lively and covered. Obviously, we have a lot going on today, as we do just about every day here in Central Florida. We are looking ahead to the return of Butch and Sunny, the Starliner crew that have been up on the International Space Station for several months now, much longer than they intended. They should be undocking tonight and returning to Earth off the coast of Florida sometime tomorrow evening. That is the plan, if the weather holds, of course. We'll have more on that coming up in a few minutes. We're also going to be looking at the latest effort to try and make Florida a hands-free state when it comes to driving. We know that we have been trying to push for stronger texting and driving laws, and we've been pushing that for years, ever since Matt Austin, our anchor here at News 6, was injured in a crash with a distracted driver. So we'll have more on the efforts on making that change here in Central Florida and across the state, and how one Central Florida community is putting their weight behind the initiative to try and get something done in Tallahassee. But before we get to all of that, we are going to be talking about the weather. All over the weekend, we saw severe weather all across the country, and we were expecting some here in Central Florida. Fortunately, Central Florida at least got spared probably the worst of it. For more on that, we're joined now by News 6 digital meteorologist David Nazario. David, how are you doing?
Much better today, now that we're no longer tracking severe thunderstorms or tornado watches all across Central Florida. What about you, my friend?
Yeah, same. I was working a little bit this weekend myself. I know you were here for the duration. I had to pop in when we had that tornado warning out in Sumter County. But
yes.
When that happened, we were maybe thinking, oh, this could just be the start of it. We were seeing tornado warnings in northern Florida, and as I understand, later over in the Tampa area also saw some. But we, outside of that isolated cell that had some potential for some rotation there, we were largely spared here in Central Florida, but we were anticipating that it could be pretty strong for us. So what exactly happened there? How did we manage to sort of dodge the bullet, as it were?
So truthfully, I'm going to be digging into a little bit of that as we go over the next several days, especially during what I call this ceasefire in significant weather action, because I noticed a large majority of the major action took place yesterday on both of our coastlines. And when I came in for the severe weather coverage, we started the day with pretty much that long, stretched-out squall line of special weather statements, severe thunderstorm warnings, which included this potential for small hail and 60 to 70-mile-an-hour damaging straight-line winds. But then as it made its way into our viewing area, over the heart of the peninsula, everything sort of just fell apart. And we started to see a concentration of the strongest stuff, both in Volusia and especially Brevard County, and then on our west coast, closer to the Tampa Bay, Clearwater, just to the north of that, near the Crystal River area, where we actually did have a couple of confirmed tornado sightings, whether it be waterspout actually on the ground making that transition from a waterspout, or just short duration funnel clouds brought to us by a few of the trained spotters out there. So I'm wondering if our coastlines and the abnormally warm water that we have on both sides of us are playing a role in kind of stripping away Central Florida from a lot of that significant weather action. And this could be a good rule of thumb going forward whenever we have these blanket threats for severe weather. We don't want to keep blasting the horn out there and then unfortunately, well, I should say reverse that. Fortunately, nothing happens.
Yeah.
But, we're working hard, busting behind and kind of just waiting for it. And then it's a nothing burger. It kind of remains to be seen, where did we go, maybe not necessarily wrong, but was there a factor that we missed? And since you mentioned the prolific severe weather event, what I have here, even though the data is not available to us because we're going back 3 days in time, we only have about a day's worth of radar data archived, but what I have here is a graphic that's going to take us through the 3-day weather event so you all out there can see exactly what took place with this severe weather event. Let me go ahead and get this in motion, and you can see as we went through Friday, look at that long line of severe thunderstorm warnings over the Central Plains expanding, and then here come the tornadoes, the nocturnal tornado threat that moved through the Ohio, Mississippi valleys and across the lower Great Lakes and the Midwestern states. And then as we rolled through the day on Saturday, watch the Deep South. That's when the second phase or the second mode of our severe thunderstorm event took place. And look at all the flash flooding that also went on with this event. I saw a lot of storm chasers and other meteorologists on social media covering this event, and I do think that sometimes we fall short of really advertising how bad the flash flooding risk gets with these very strong embedded thunderstorms. And then finally, as we go through Sunday, you can see the third phase of this severe weather event begins to unfold up the eastern seaboard. And you can see down here in Florida towards the lower, there's the radar data now finally, now that we're within 24 hours again. You could see the extension of that tail moving through central Florida where we had a couple of coastal tornado warnings, but thankfully nothing further inland. And then finally, Sunday night into very early Monday morning, we have officially fully cleared out, and we are all good to go.
That is really impressive to see, just like tracking that line of watches and warnings as it cut across the country. I mean, like even without the radar superimposed on that, you can just follow that storm so precisely. And this was to be fair to us, we, and by we I mean our pinpoint weather team, yourself included, were saying that this is going to be bad for much of the country for several days leading up to this.
Yeah.
We were just weren't.
Oh, yeah.
What just ended up being kind of the curveball was that Central Florida ended up sort of almost as if it was in a bubble, missing all of that. Although points on either side of us to our north and just to our south got hit.
Exactly. And to kind of go back on what I was saying earlier, it could be the opposite effect as well. Maybe not necessarily the warmer waters off of either coastline zapping us of our energy, but looking back at the radar, we did lose a lot of what we call the catalyst or the trigger for this significant weather. Because even though we had the warm air, we all know it was hot yesterday. As I was rolling into the studio middle of the afternoon, on my dashboard it said 89 degrees. I was waiting for it to hit 90. We never did, but it was very warm out there. Trademark low-level jet overhead, the clouds, especially first thing in the morning. I had a couple close friends of mine send me videos they had taken when they were out and about closer to sunrise, and they could see that low-level stratus and the fair weather cumulus that develops when there's already warmth and lift out there just ripping at about maybe 1,000 to 2,000 feet in the air, and those clouds were flying. So the only other thing I can think of is along the coast we had that instigation of those significant thunderstorms, but then into the peninsula as that line tracked through, we didn't quite have that nudge that we needed to produce those long duration severe thunderstorms in action. So, I mean, that's a good thing, definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
We had everybody here covered down, and we were working feverishly around the clock. I didn't get out of here until almost 1 in the morning because we had a bit of a nighttime event begin to take place in Polk and Osceola. But thankfully, that is not nearly the song and dance that we're expecting for this upcoming week.
That is true. I was just about to say, actually, what a difference a day makes. You walk outside, a little bit breezy today, but cool, beautiful, gorgeous, hardly a cloud in the sky. Can you walk us through a little bit of the rest of the week? What we can expect? I'm guessing a little bit more of the same before we see anything even remotely close to what we saw yesterday.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And this is going to be very short-winded. I promise I'm not going to rattle on today because there's just not a lot to talk about for the first time in a little bit. You look outside right now over the Bahamas, far off to our east, you can see some lingering thunderstorms in association with what we had roll through yesterday. But for a majority of us, we are quiet, and it is going to stay that way, thankfully. I'll switch us over to our current wind gusts, and as you were saying, Thomas, it is windy. We now are on the backside of that cold front, and its upper-level trough, winds highest in the atmosphere that drive these cold temps down. You can see we have due west-northwesterly flow. And as a result, we're going to stay fairly breezy through the day today, and our temperatures are going to stay pretty mild, too. These are the temps outside right now. Still 59 out in Leesburg, 64 in Kissimmee, 65 here in the Orlando metro area. And then naturally, because of those warm Gulf Stream waters, you can see Cape Canaveral down to Melbourne sitting in the mid to upper 60s. And then the forecast lows for tonight, we're definitely going to be dropping down. You can see 43 up in Gainesville, 48 here in Orlando. Even the temps along the coast, despite the warm beaches just offshore there, we're going to be in the low 50s down in Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, Melbourne, and Mico, Florida, in southern Brevard. And then even as we roll into tomorrow, if you notice, as we begin to kind of get that cold air out of here, that air mass that's come down is going to start to acclimate to Florida's usual weather pattern. We're still going to be sitting in the mid to upper 70s for your Tuesday. I was going to say Wednesday. It doesn't feel like Monday. But for your Tuesday, It's going to be fairly comfortable out there. Here's a quick glance at your hour-by-hour forecast for your St. Patrick's Day. Gorgeous day, truthfully. I know there's going to be a little bit of a nip in the air because of those breezes. It'll feel a little bit closer to the upper 50s, maybe low 60s, despite seeing the temperatures there trying to get up into the upper 60s towards the warmest part of the day. But all in all, especially if you're going to get out for some St. Patrick's Day fun and shenanigans, it should be a great time. We're going to quickly glance at the GFS because naturally, because it's our job, we're looking downrange. So as you can see here, we are tracking something for later this week, a very weak cold front. I don't think we're going to get a lot in the way of an influence to our local weather. You can see maybe an increase in cloud cover, a very stray shower or two. Definitely no severe risk with this. We haven't fully reset the atmosphere after what just took place yesterday and the days prior to that. And then if I fast forward a little bit more, I will openly say I'm currently pinpointing mid to late the following week. We're going to be watching this system right here that could possibly play a big role in our weather, but this is next Tuesday into next Wednesday. You can see I actually have the instability, the storm energy overlaid underneath the future radar. So you can see alongside the showers and storms from Tampa, Orlando up to the East Coast, you can see down towards Miami and along the eastern seaboard where those green shades aren't present, we've got those psychedelic faded colors indicating there will be a little bit more oomph in the atmosphere to create some thunderstorms and possible gusty winds. But obviously, we still have plenty of time to get ahead of this, and we'll see some changes with the model data, of course, looking so far ahead. Let's get you on over to your pinpoint accurate forecast, a wonderful next 3 days, and honestly, looking like a pretty solid weekend for a change. We've had back-to-back weekends with a severe weather risk, and I don't really think for this upcoming weekend we're going to have that same song and dance. It should be quite the opposite, Thomas.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm looking at those temps, we're seeing like some 80s, mid 80s, still a little warm for me personally, but, definitely beats the 90s any day of the week. It's looking really beautiful. And I know we'll be staying on top of that pattern you're looking at for next week. It seems like it's very much the same, just that big sweep of a system kind of going all across the country. So we're going to have to.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna have to keep an eye on it. Hopefully, it's not as severe for our neighbors to the north and for the people in the Central Plains. And of course, we're hoping that we can pull out another squeaker for us as well. Just see some rain, maybe some thunderstorms, but nothing too serious.
Exactly. You can always count on us, especially here in the Digital Weather Center. We are your eyes down range, so we'll definitely keep you all updated as we get closer in time. But for now, let's just go ahead and take full advantage of the gorgeous week we have in store for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know tomorrow you are going to be filling in for Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos on the morning show. A little bit of whiplash for you insofar as your wake-up schedule. So I won't keep you any longer. I'll let you get done what you got to get done so you can head. Yeah, well, I mean, how is that different from any other day? All right, David.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much for your expertise, and have a pleasant day.
You as well, Thomas. Thanks again.
All right. And with that, we need to take a look at the national outlook for following those severe storms. Although we were able to escape the worst of it, parts of the country are stuck cleaning up, and there is a significant loss of life throughout some of the most affected communities. CBS News' Jason Allen has more on that.
Oh, my God.
A severe storm system has pummeled the country, leaving a path of destruction.
Right here is where my room is.
9-year-old Alea Contreras convinced her family to evacuate their home in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, before a tornado barreled through Friday night.
I was like, we've stayed here through several tornadoes. It'll be fine. And then she was like, no, Mom, we need to leave.
Alea's mom, Kelsey Webb, heeded her third grader's warning, driving away minutes before the tornado hit.
You feel pretty lucky that something inside you this time told you to leave?
Yeah, we wouldn't be alive.
Dozens across the country have died in the storm. In St. Louis, tornadoes ripped apart homes and businesses and flipped over tractor trailers. Winds up to 80 miles per hour gusted through the South and Midwest, with tornadoes tearing down homes in Louisiana and ripping trees from the ground in Arkansas. Hundreds of thousands are without power across the country. A state of emergency was declared in several states, including Alabama, where a tornado threw a bus on top of a school building. In Oklahoma, wildfires ripped through the state, fueled by strong winds and dry conditions. Crews are still battling the fires, many forced to evacuate, with 130 fires reported across the state. Deer were seen fleeing the flames.
It still doesn't feel real.
Kelsey Webb is urging her children to see the good through the destruction.
We're all okay. We're not injured. We're alive. All the stuff can be replaced.
Jason Allen, CBS News.
That is some truly devastating sights to see, and of course the wildfires out in Oklahoma as well, just driven by that wind. It's going to be a long time of cleanup and recovery for those parts of the country. Dealing with we are still seeing some lingering problems from the weekend storms as well. That caused major delays and a ground stop at MCO, Orlando International Airport. News 6's Stephanie Rodriguez spoke with people today who are just now getting a chance to get back on schedule, get back on flights, and head home.
Where are you headed today?
Rochester, New York. Back home, got to go back to work, back to the regular schedule.
For some, the party is over, but it's just beginning for others.
We're heading to Jamaica, getting a little sun, fun, and just to relax.
Whether you're flying in or out of Orlando, you'll probably find yourself in line, asleep, or reorganizing your luggage.
People say they already know the song and dance of air travel. Get here early and practice patience, which might be especially needed this time since the airport says they expect 7.4 million people to use it as a gateway to the world during the 44-day travel period for spring break.
How early did you get here?
We got here about maybe 2 hours earlier than our time for our flight.
While the numbers already make for a busy MCO, a ground delay on Sunday for severe weather grounded some. When you saw flights getting canceled, were you a little bit worried?
We were, because we saw that the weather was changing from when we got here to now.
So just keeping up to date with the online and checking everything. So I wasn't upset. I wasn't scared or anything like that.
I was a little bit upset because I wanted to enjoy my spring break and I didn't want it to get all to waste.
Some flyers tell us they got their flights rescheduled for today, and as of right now, things seem to be back to normal at the airport, as Floridians and tourists alike make their way to and from the Sunshine State. In Orlando, Stephanie Rodriguez, Getting Results, News 6.
Over the weekend, Jarrell Baker, News 6 reporter Jarrell Baker, was interviewing people at the airport as well. Some people were saying they weren't going to be able to get on a flight back home until Tuesday or Wednesday evening, so it's definitely caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. We'll be keeping tabs on that. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back in about 2 minutes, we're going to take a look at the return for the Starliner crew along with the Crew 9 crew from the mission that launched about 6 months ago. They will be coming back hopefully later this evening, at least undocking from the space station and then splashing down off the coast of Florida later tomorrow evening. We'll have more on that coming up in just about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Take 6. The time now is 12:49, almost 12:50. Later on this evening, we'll be watching as the Crew Dragon space capsule that went up on the Crew 9 mission undocks from the International Space Station, getting ready to return back to Earth, which will eventually splash down off the coast of Florida sometime tomorrow evening, again, if everything goes as planned, but carrying with them the crew of the Starliner space capsule that went up last year. Butch Wilmore and Sonny will be coming back on that Crew Dragon space capsule. They were there for significantly longer than they initially intended on being at the International Space Station. CBS News' Mark Strassman has more on that.
Ignition and lift off.
Finally, the beginning of the end, launching an overdue homecoming for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. After liftoff Friday night, their replacement crew, 4 fresh astronauts led by Commander Ann McClain, arrived at the space station early Sunday morning. Among the welcoming party, Wilmore and Williams.
It was a wonderful day. Great to see our friends arrive. So thank you so much.
After a short handover, Wilmore and Williams, along with NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, will board a different SpaceX capsule and return to Earth on Tuesday.
People are always ready to get back home.
Ken Bowersox, a former astronaut himself, now leads space operations for NASA.
It's always a little bittersweet, right? You miss your family, but you love being on space station.
How do you think they've handled it, all the attention?
Butch and Sonny have been great. I can't say enough positive things about them and how proud I am of them.
Wilmore and Williams' space saga is unlike any in recent memory. Back in June, their ride to the ISS developed propulsion problems. Their original 8-day mission stretched into more than 9 months.
I'm looking forward to sitting across from them and hearing about their perception of how things went and all about their time on orbit.
And what a story they'll have to tell. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Atlanta.
Certainly an incredible story. Both astronauts have been absolute professionals throughout. They have been perfectly comfortable remaining on the space station, saying that they are there to work and that's what they have been doing this entire time, despite the fact that the mission did not go as planned. We're still waiting to find out what could happen with the Boeing Starliner space capsule. So far, there's been no update on when or if that space capsule will fly again, but we'll keep you posted. And later today, News 6's James Sparvero is looking at SpaceX's plans to increase launches from the Space Coast, but they're running into some issues and with FAA denying them a new launch pad last week. The report came out. News 6's James Burrow will be bringing it all to us coming up tonight on News 6 this afternoon, starting at 4. Moving on, we are now looking at the effort to make Florida a hands-free state for distracted driving, preventing people from texting while driving and keeping their hands completely removed from their devices while behind the wheel. This evening, Osceola County is set to throw their weight behind the initiative, sending a message to Tallahassee that they want to get this done. News 6's Angie Casada has more.
Yeah, Osceola County leaders are asking for a statewide hands-free driving law. That means no texting and driving, not even looking at your GPS. And this is actually going to be backing a bill now that's moving through the Florida Senate. And they're asking for tougher laws because there's been a lot of distracted driving crashes lately here in the county.
I think it's really important that people don't drive distracted.
The concern isn't new or isolate to one area.
Especially driving in Osceola County where there is such a heavy tourist population. I feel like oftentimes the biggest thing is keeping an eye out, not just for yourself, but keeping an eye for other drivers.
Yet it keeps happening, but now that could be changing. Osceola County commissioners urging state lawmakers to pass the Florida hands-free driving law, which would ban handheld phone use behind the wheel.
I think that's awesome. I mean, for safety, they shouldn't have it any other way, because I actually was hit by someone and it was my husband's car, totaled his car. We were on our way to a Magic game and someone was texting while they were driving and we could have been killed. But I think for everybody's safety, it's a long overdue thing.
This issue is also personal for News 6's our own Matt Austin, who was injured by a distracted driver and has fought for stronger laws. He teamed up with Demetrius Branca, who lost his son in a similar crash.
This is a plague that is, it's killing people all over the state, all over the country, and our politicians aren't really doing anything about it.
The bill, sponsored by Senator Aaron Grahl, has bipartisan support and could take effect July 1st if passed. Osceola leaders say it's time for Florida to act. Now, the bill is still moving through the Senate. If you'd like to learn more about Osceola's resolution or Matt Austin's push for change, we have that over on clickorlando.com. Reporting in Osceola County, Angie Casada, Getting Results, News 6.
As Angie said, we have a whole slew of stories covering the efforts to change Florida's distracted driving laws. You can find that all at clickorlando.com/driving change. That's all of our coverage from the many years we've been following this and making the push to change Florida's distracted driving laws to try and make Florida a hands-free state. Again, that's clickorlando.com/driving change. That'll do it for us today here on Take 6. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have more coming up on News 6 at 4. Again, Julie Broughton is off all week, but News 6 meteorologist Jonathan Kegas will be filling in for her at 4 and covering all of the evening shows. And we will have all of your day's headlines as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a pleasant day.